All right, so right now we're gonna do a tier list. Let's the real talk right here, down in the nitty gritty. But Devil May Cry 1. We're gonna do a Devil May Cry 1 mission tier list. So every single mission, 1 through 23 is on this list, and I gotta put them somewhere on here. We're ranking by overall enjoyment of the level. I am a speedrunner, so I do hate everything, but I think that I can put aside my hatred in some capacity and try to review them unbiasedly. But know that my speedrunner perspective and having played this game more than anyone else on the planet might skew the results a little bit compared to what you would do. Can I like double click these to see like the whole? No. Okay. I could bring up the images though. 1 second. So I can show you guys exactly what I'm talking about. Like there, perfect. All right. Definitely all in D. I don't know. Okay, so the first mission. Mission 1. Curse of the Bloody Puppets. Break an evil spell and open the cursed door. Starts off the game. You get in the castle and you got to collect 50 orbs to open a door. And then you have to go up and get a key, which triggers your introduction to the puppets. And the puppet introduction is actually really cool. And the atmosphere of this level is fantastic. However, on replays, collecting the 50 orbs is kind of ass and takes forever. Unless you know that how to do horse jump and get the 50 orbs off the spear, it takes like 2 minutes. And it makes replays like not as fun because of that. Also, the level ends with 2 big wave fights that have a lot of RNG. But you know, casually, the RNG is not going to affect you at all. In a speedrun, it's pretty ass. Especially in Dante Must Die, it's hyper ass. New game Dante Must Die, this level is super AIDS. Because you don't have DT, but the enemies can DT. And you will mash your hands off. So new game DMD, probably this is the worst level in the whole game. So that's going to bring the score down a little bit. On replays, casually, having to collect all the orbs is pretty boring. So I think that also brings it down a couple bit. I think this is probably one of the worst missions in the game. It really sets you up to play the game for the first time in like a cool and interesting way. But especially if it's your first playthrough, you only have 3 yellow orbs and you're gonna die a lot. And you have to do probably like 5 or 6 minutes of walking around and like collecting stuff before you get to the actual fight at the very end of the mission. And if you're first time playing and you die more than 3 times, you'll have to start the whole game over again because you don't have any saves, which means you gotta play the prequel to mission 1 and the entirety of mission 1 again. So like, and also like playing this on DMD and not in New Game Plus is complete ass. So personally, I think we're gonna have to put this one at D tier. It's probably the worst mission in the game. That being said, mission 2, Judge of Death, open the door to the cathedral, has one of the most banger cutscenes in the game where you get Alistair. You also get DT on this mission and the shotgun. The shotgun's definitely far too hidden. I think it should be more visual because I think people miss it a lot. But 2 of the best weapons in the game. I know there's only like 5 weapons in the game, but 2 of the best. And you get DT. On DMD, you also get your first Shadow here, and Shadow is great. Sin Sitters are just worse versions of Sin Sides, honestly, and they're introduced on this mission. But overall, I think this mission's pretty good. It's really short. It's got some banging cutscenes, some good atmosphere. It's short, like really short. Maybe that could be detrimental to it. On Dante Must Die, it has either blades or syncytes in the hallway. And personally, I think that's great. I like the variety on your replays and stuff. As long as you're not playing a new game. If you get new game and there's blades there, it's awful. So that's like pretty rough. But I definitely think this is S tier. Not triple S tier, Triple S tier is reserved for only the best ones, but I think this is like really good. It's only got 1 or 2 negative things I'd say about it. It's length and getting blades on New Game DMD. It's pretty bad. And that's a pretty niche scenario. But definitely like introduces some of the best stuff about the game and has a great cutscene. And it's short. So S tier for sure. Mission 3. Destroyer of Arador. Overcome the trial and acquire the pride of the lion. This is the first real boss fight mission. It's got Phantom on it. Phantom is a fantastic boss casually, and the speedrunning is pretty good too. It's also the first mission to have a secret mission, and I really like this secret mission. It's cool. It has you doing a critical hit. It teaches you more about the game, and it's pretty easy to find. This is definitely a banger mission. It's nice and short, but it's not too short. It's got a boss fight, really good cutscene. Music is awesome here. I'm trying to think if there's any reason why I wouldn't put this at triple S tier. And to be honest, I can't think of one. It's really good even on DMD. The skulls are cool. The only downside to this mission is that it has damage over time, which I think is kind of lame, but it's really minor. That's like a super niche circumstance. The only thing I'd change about this is I'd remove damage over time, affecting your rank on Dante Must Die. But besides that, pretty solid. Even very doable SB, special bonus on DMD. That's definitely our first triple S. That's a banger of a mission for sure. All right. Mission 4. Let's see here. Black Knight. Display 1 strength to the lion and open the path. Acquire the melancholy soul. Now, I have more hours in this game than any human should ever have in this game. So I never get lost. But when I was a kid and I played this for the first time, and when I watch people play this for the first time on stream, they get super fucking lost in this mission. And I don't know how, because there's only like 3 rooms that you could go to. But I think the fact that it allows you to backtrack all the way to mission 1 is probably a detriment. It's the first mission where you do some backtracking, so that's a negative, and you definitely can get lost. But what you're supposed to do is display the strength to the lion and open the path. And you just collected an item 2 seconds ago that has the pride of the lion. It's called the pride of the lion, and this is a lion. But I think the misconception here is people don't really recognize that this is a lion statue and that this is where you're supposed to go. So they get really confused. Yeah, the fact that you could jump down the hole in the hallway can lead you to like mission 6 early and stuff, and that can get you really lost. This also has the hallway phantom fight, which I think is really cool. Like, I think that the reason a lot of people get lost here is the hallway phantom pushes them all the way to the back because they don't know they can run from it. And then they're like, okay, well, there's rooms down here, you know. But this mission also has 4 secret missions in it. It's got Phantom Babies 1, Phantom Babies 2. This mission has a lot of shit in it. Like Phantom Babies 1, Phantom Babies 2. It's got the 4 Shadows secret mission, which is the hardest secret mission in the game. And then it's got the Shadow introduction, which is a banger. And that fight casually is amazing. In the speedrun, it's a bit annoying, but oh well. In DMD, you fight Death Scissor for the first time there. The camera in that fight's kind of ass, not gonna lie. You think it's cool that it lets you explore around? I kind of agree, but definitely people get lost and have no idea where to go. Like, it's really open-ended. But I do think that if you're an adult playing it for the first time and you're actually paying attention to the title screens of the missions, it's pretty simple. I think this mission is kind of mid. And the Nello introduction and boss fight here, the Nello fight is kind of mid. It's whatever. It's a Nello fight. And it feels like kind of weird that the Nello fight is so scripted. It feels like when you finally start to combo him and start to learn how the boss fight works, he just teleports away. I think the introduction to Nello is, yeah, it's amazing and the cutscenes are great, but this is a really mixed bag of a mission, to be honest. It's got some of the best stuff in the game and some of the worst stuff in the game. Surprisingly, the mission is really short too, if you know what you're doing, but it can also be like 3 hours long if you get super lost. I think this is an A or a B. I have to agree. I think this is probably an A because there is a lot of really cool stuff on this mission, but I think the overall execution of getting the player to go the right direction is probably not that great. All right, mission 5, the shortest mission in the game. Guiding of the soul. Go to the destination before the power of the melancholy soul fades away. So the gimmick of this mission is you have a timer, and the timer is like 3 minutes long or something. It's kind of short actually, and it tells you literally where to go, which is this door. But you've never seen this door before unless you did a lot of exploring on mission 5. So I guess they kind of wanted you to explore a bit on mission 5, but I feel like it makes the experience overall kind of lesser. You just got introduced to Shadow in this big introduction thing, and then are immediately thrown into another Shadow fight. And it feels kind of like there's just a lot of shadows happening right after each other, because you probably replay mission 4 a lot, and that's a mandatory Shadow fight. And then when you finally beat Nello, it's like, okay, now you have to fight another Shadow. So I think the pacing here is a little bit off. If you have any idea where to go, the timer is like super generous. But a lot of people don't, and they get super lost and don't know where to go. And then there's an alternate, like, you have to like restart the mission by going to a different area in the game that you probably also don't remember that you saw in mission 2 to like recharge the soul and then go back to here. So like, if you know where to go, it's a super short and quite fun mission where you basically just fight a shadow. But if you don't know where to go, then it could be, honestly, this is even worse than mission 4. This has to be ranked worse than mission 4, right? Because mission 4 has all that really cool shit, and this just kind of has nothing but bad shit. Like, when you know where to go, it's an inoffensive level that has a fun shadow fight. But when you don't know where to go, it's a complete clusterfuck nightmare, actually. So I think I'm gonna have to put it in it, probably D tier, honestly. Also, yeah, there's damage over time on this, which is pretty ass. I'm putting it in D tier, I think. Maybe C tier. It's like definitely better than mission 1. But yeah, we'll see. Well, maybe we'll move it later. Mission 6, Evils of the Waterways. Defeat the evil guardian and acquire the guiding light. So this mission is pretty straightforward. You're already in the sewers and there's only one direction you can go, basically. On normal, it has Beelzebugs. Oh, there is no damage over time in 5. You're right. That's just a timer. Beelzebugs, the bugs, are ass. Terrible enemy. There's a reason they don't exist at all on DMD or hard. If you don't use items, those enemies are just awful to fight. They're not fun. The bugs are just terrible. It has a little bit of exploration, but yeah, you fight 2 rooms of bugs. And then it has a mini boss fight with the Death Scissor. And Death Scissors casually are pretty cool. Personally, I think they're one of the more annoying enemies in the game. But you fight them like twice in a normal playthrough, and I think they're fine for what they are. They're fine. The mission's really short, no secret missions. You can backtrack, but you would never really think that you need to. On Dante Must Die, the bugs are replaced with what are those guys called? The electric guys. And those are pretty fun to fight. In New Game, though, you don't have Ifrit yet, which plasmas, yeah. In New Game, you don't have Ifrit, which makes them kind of ass, but not too bad. And then it's just the Death Scissor. This mission's okay. It's whatever. You definitely can't get lost. I think it's probably C tier. That's like just very average, you know? And the bugs make it, you know, less than good. So I'm definitely putting that one at C tier. Mission 7. I have a lot to say about Mission 7. Mission 7 is an interesting one. So this one also has damage over time. And if you don't know, that normal damage over time does not affect your ranking, but on Dante Must Die, it does. This also has the worst secret mission in the game on this mission. You could, in theory, do it on the intermission between 7 and 8, but most people are probably either never going to encounter it or encounter it on 7. That secret mission is definitely the worst secret mission in the game by far. It's not even a contest, and that by itself definitely eliminates this from S tier. You have a hallway phantom fight, which is really cool. I like the hallway phantom fights, so that's definitely a bonus. It's the second time you've done it, and at this point, you probably actually fight this one. You probably run from the first one casually, and then this one you definitely would fight. At least I did casually. And then in normal, you have Sin Scythes, which are always a fun fight. And then bugs in the elevator room. And the bugs suck, but it's just an elevator room. They're not even required kills. It's not too bad. And then that's it. The mission's over. It's really short. On DMD, you have Frosts, which also on new game, you're fighting without Ifrit. Way worse than Plasmas. That fight without Ifrit is brutal. Actually, like, it is so hard. So DMD, pretty shit mission. Secret mission, pretty shit. Although, I'd say it's definitely better than 6. One big thing that's like kind of a nitpick, most people are not going to care about this, but it's basically impossible to special bonus this mission on Dante Must Die because the damage over time reduces your score. So in order to DMD SB this, you have to do the secret mission and take no damage in under a certain amount of time while also killing the hallway phantom. And that is basically impossible. I'm pretty sure no one's done it without using the save and quit glitch. So that is a pretty big flaw and oversight to me because not being able to special bonus one of the missions is a big deal if you want players to be able to special bonus stuff. Like, it exists, so making it logistically impossible is not very cool. But I'm going to make that takeaway not many points because most people aren't going to try to do that, so it's not a huge deal. I would definitely say this is firmly an A tier. Maybe like top of C tier, definitely better than 6, but definitely worse than 4. All right, mission 8. We have a little intermission between 7 and 8, but mostly it's used for backtracking and exploring. There's an extra hallway phantom in the backtrack, which is pretty cool. But that's not going to count towards mission 8. Mission 8 is a really short mission. It basically is just the final phantom fight, and then the grenade gun, and then a little bit of a puzzle at the end. The cinematics, yeah, the cutscene for Phantom here is phenomenal. Also, huge bonus points to having the additional way to kill the boss where he jumps on the glass and breaks it. I think that's fucking sick, really radical. Also love the added bonus of there being a shop right before the boss fight. I think that's really, really nice. And the music and ambience in that room is really good. And then, yeah, the cutscene for the boss, fantastic. And the boss is great. And the boss is really, really good. And then you get the grenade gun, which is the best weapon in the game by far. And very fun to use. So that's a huge plus. The thing in this screenshot, the thing that's here is really confusing. This is a puzzle where you take a trident and put the trident in the thing, and then there's a timer for you to beat the door, which is like 2 rooms away, and get underneath the door before it closes. And the timer is actually kind of tight. It does give you like a cinematic of like what's happening, but if you haven't explored thoroughly in mission 1, you can definitely get lost here and like be confused. Most people are probably going to have to attempt the puzzle like 3 times, but it's really good. I think that the only thing that stops this from being a triple S mission is that the puzzle can be a bit confusing because you have to go through load doors to finish it. So I'm thinking this is firmly in S tier, probably better than mission 2. All right, mission 9, new strength. Use the strength to open the door. Mission 9. So mission 9 is one of the longer missions, and it introduces you to an entirely new area. You leave the castle, and it's not really super explained why, but it's a fantastic mission. There is quite a bit of walking at the beginning, but it kind of builds up to the introduction of blades, and the blades have a really cool introduction and are fun enemies to fight. And then it opens up this huge courtyard. That being said, the level design really is good at making sure new players go where they're supposed to go. Because there's these lamps on the ground. Because you come to this area many times, but the lamps on the ground tell you where you're supposed to go subconsciously. And they do a really good job at it. Like way better than this mission start screen does. So at first it tells you to go to the Ifrit room, and then there's like a cutscene that shows you the platforming puzzle. And the platforming puzzle is whatever. And you get Ifrit here, and Ifrit is one of my favorites for sure. And then when you leave, you get the Griffin fight. And the Griffin fight has a phenomenal intro cutscene, and it is quite a fun fight, but it's optional. Ifrit's really cool, and so is the Griffin fight. But the Griffin fight is totally optional, which makes this level triple S here, in my opinion. It's such a cool thing. Like, it's teased at the start. Use the new strength to open the door, and you have to punch something to set it on fire to open the door. And once you know that, you can skip the boss. And it's like pretty sick. It's like really cool. And the boss fight's fun. After that, you have to fight waves of marionettes. But this is after you get the grenade gun. So fighting them becomes like quite fun. I mean, they're fun before the grenade gun, but it's even more fun with the grenade gun. And then I believe you get introduced to fetishes here too. This level has a ton of stuff in it. You get introduced to blades, Griffin, you get Ifrit, really good cutscenes. You get introduced to fetishes too. Yeah, there's a ton of hidden orbs and items in the level. So if you really want to explore, there's a bunch of cool stuff here. And some great cutscenes. I will say it ends on a red orb consuming door, which is not my favorite, but this is easily triple S tier. Like this is definitely triple S tier. Is it better than Mission 3 though? Honestly, I think it is. I think it is better than Mission 3. It just has more stuff. It's a lot longer and it's consistently good the whole way through. It's hard to even think of a negative, and it's just bigger. So I'm going to go with even better. That's like the best mission so far is Mission 9. Which is weird because I wouldn't think of Mission 9 as like one of the goated missions. All right, Mission 10. Canyon of Mist. Did I miss any secret missions? I don't think I did, right? Canyon of Mist. Mixed feelings, yeah, for sure. Come out of the Labyrinth Canyon alive. So it's pretty obvious from the puzzle's explanation when you go to it, what you're supposed to do. Basically, the TLDR for this is there is a white light that goes into enemies, and you have to kill the enemies it goes into and then follow the light to the correct path. There are 3 different forking paths where there's a 50-50 chance that the light goes on either side. And if you choose the wrong path, then you have to start the whole thing over again. It is a really cool concept, but the execution of it is a bit weird. If you're trying to go fast, then the light can just screw you and move at the last second. But if you're playing normally, I feel like that would be really rare for it to happen because you're going to wait and watch for the light to go all the way through before you follow it. So maybe that's just a speedrun issue. The enemy encounters and fights in this level are pretty fun. But the light gimmick is kind of like falls flat, I think. I don't think it's done as well as it could have been. If I were to improve it, I don't know how I'd improve it, honestly. It's done like decently well, but it can be quite frustrating. I really don't like how the blade on the start of the second one attacks you right at the start. It means that you have to be super ready for it, and even if you are really ready for it, if you get bad RNG, you could still get hit. I don't like that. You are introduced to Clyclops. No cutscene or anything. Kind of a lackluster introduction at the end of the level. But they are a decently fun enemy to fight. It's just mid. It's not... Yeah, you definitely get hit by that blade in your first playthrough there, like 100%. It's just mid. It's nothing special. It's just whatever. And it can really fuck you. It's the only enemy without an intro cutscene, I think. It might be. Yeah, I think this is like... It's not bad, but it's definitely not good as good as Mission 4. So this is C tier, I think. I think we go with C tier. Mission 11. Okay, Mission 11. It's got some cool stuff. Opens up with a death scissor. Or, no, it's a death scythe, right? A death scythe chasing you around an open room, which is really cool. Because it's like you want to explore and figure out what to do. There's even like a little bit of a platforming puzzle in this room. But there's an enemy that's chasing you. And I think that's really cool. Because it makes you be like, okay, do I want to fight this guy? He's kind of annoying, but you know, do I fight him and then explore, or do I try to explore while he's chasing me and stuff? And he's got these platforms that throw you in the air, which can even help you with the platforming at sometimes. I think that's great. Secret mission on this as well, where you do some platforming to collect a blue orb fragment off of enemies' heads. Great secret mission. It teaches you about enemy step and stuff, and it's quite easy but fun. And easy to find too. It's not like super hidden. If you try to backtrack, boom, secret mission. For a lot of people, that might be their first secret mission because they just accidentally, you know, they try to backtrack and like boom. One negative, I would say, the intended path is you go into the well, and then that like gets you to go around, and then you grab the item that you need to open the door. But when I was a kid, I distinctly remember not knowing I could go in the well and being really lost here for a while. So there is some potential to get lost. Maybe as a kid, I'm just a brainlet, but some potential to get lost. And then you have the Nello 2 fight, and this fight is sick. Cutscene's pretty fun. It's short, but it's fun. And then the fight is sick, and the music is banging, for sure. Fighting the blades, undergrounds, whatever. I really like how one of the blue orb fragments in this mission requires you to kill all the underground blades. That's a cool way to find a blue orb fragment. I think it's the only time in the game they do something like that, where you report, like, there's optional enemies in a room, but killing those optional enemies gives you a blue orb fragment, which I think is sick. I'd say, and it's a short mission, I'd say this is definitely S tier. Probably not as good as mission 2, but definitely better than 4. It's nice pacing. It's got a fantastic boss fight. Mission 12, Ghost Ship. So, definitely a mixed bag of a mission. It's pretty short. It's got some cool stuff. It has a nice set piece in it. But underwater sections, bro. You're swimming. Kamiya played way too much Zelda. He's like, we need a water level. And this has water in it. And it is ass. But in defense of the water levels, I will say it is like 10 seconds long if you know where you're going. And it is impossible to get lost, at least in the one in mission 12. So in the defense of the water levels, pretty innocuous. I don't think it's that bad. Inverted camera controls in the water level is fucking stupid, though. I will say that. Once you're out of the water, you're inside of a ship, which is really cool level design. You get the needle gun, but that's just required for underwater stuff. It's whatever. On Dante Must Die, you fight Frosts in the ship, which I think is cool. It's kind of a tight area for Frost, but the camera's pretty solid no matter what. And then you go on top of the ship, which is a really cool arena. Fighting on top of a ghost ship as it fucking flies around is like, that's sick. It's really cool. Probably the best set piece in the whole game. Probably the best set piece in the whole game. But it's got a Death Scythe fight, and I really don't like the positioning of the pole right next to where you spawn the Death Scythe fight. I really don't like it because you have to jump up in the air and Helmbreaker to hit the enemy. It's like the only way you can do it. And there's these platforms all around that you can jump through the bottom of, but not Helmbreaker down through the top of. So really often, especially casually, you jump to try to Helmbreaker them, and they're really hard to see because the background of the sky is like black and the ship is like this dark, dingy brown. So you like jump and then like, oh, you're landing on a platform. And that fight can be really annoying. And then the Griffin fight. The cutscene's cool, really short, whatever. It's a nothing cutscene. But the boss fight can be kind of ass. I think this is definitely the worst Griffin fight. For sure. The boomerang is hyper annoying. And unless you're using Ebony and Ivory, you can't break it, basically. Like, the boomerang, basically, if you don't know, it grabs you and throws you up in the air and then like comes back down and hits you, which is cool because often when it throws you up in the air, you'll land on top of one of those masts up higher And the fight is easier to read and play if you're up higher in the level. So it kind of teaches you, like, oh, look, you can go up here. So I get it. But if you're like, okay, for a lot of players, you're using the grenade gun. The grenade gun's insane. The grenade gun fucks. And then you get to this boss fight and you still have the grenade gun, which you can't shoot in the air. And the enemy keeps throwing you in the air. And you're supposed to shoot the enemy because the enemy doesn't land very often. So it's hard to fight him with swords. So it takes a lot for people to switch off of the grenade gun once they've tried it. And you definitely need ebony and ivory for this fight. Like, no matter what you're doing, you pretty much need ebony and ivory for this fight. And so because of that, I feel like it's one of the least creative bosses. You can't do as much with it. I definitely feel that way in speedrunning too. There's not many solutions for it, and it's really hard to read. I'd say it's definitely the worst boss besides... It's definitely the worst Griffin boss. It's definitely worse than all the Phantom fights. And I'd say it's worse than all the Nightmare fights, personally. The only boss fights I'd say it's not worse than is Mundus. But yeah, I think this is A tier. It's got some amazing atmosphere, and it's really cool. No, this is C tier, I think. It's C tier. But it's better than Mission 10 and Mission 6 for sure. Because the atmosphere is really good. I'm debating, like, is it the bottom of A tier or is it the top of C tier? I think bottom of A tier, actually. That I feel more comfy here. Bottom of A tier. Mission 13, The Abyss. Find an exit and escape the ship. Second shortest mission in the game. Completely underwater, though. Only has one required fight and 2 fights if you do the optional fight. The water movement controls suck if you don't know them. And being forced to do an underwater fighting section sucks. There's really not that much to say. Once you know how the controls work, it's not that bad. And it is super short. So it's like whatever. You know, on replays, if it is more than your second playthrough, then who cares? This is a nothing mission. But if it's your first or second playthrough, this is probably pretty ass. So I'm gonna put that in C tier for sure. No, D tier. It's D tier. Top of D. Bro, if mission 5 is D tier, then I'm putting this is not worse than 1, but second worst mission. Why no B tier? I didn't feel like there was a need, really. There's not that many missions. All right, mission 14. Deep darkness and towering mountains. Go to the surface and head for the Colosseum. So, introduces some new sections here. Personally, I feel like this is a very nothing mission. There's no boss fight in it. There's no new introduction. There's an orb door. Not a huge fan of those. There is this section where it's shown here, where you go talk to a skeleton and grab an item. And if you were really, really keen, maybe you could figure out where this item's supposed to go. But you wouldn't know how to get there from here. And then it's just got spikes coming out of the ground while the floor moves the opposite direction, which is just like a whatever puzzle. And then after that, you go up an elevator, and then there's a big empty room that's got some cool stuff for exploration. And then after that, you go to the orb door room, which just has fetishes in it. In DMD, it has another death scissor. No, that's a death scythe, actually. But either way, it's just kind of nothing. And then that's the end of the mission. There's really nothing happening in this mission. It's not offensive, but it's also not good. I would say it's definitely better than mission 10. No, it's not better than mission 10, but it's better than mission 6. Definitely C tier, for sure. All right, mission 15. My initial thoughts is instant triple S banger, because the boss fight is pretty fucking sick. It's got some really good level exploration. The level design is great. I like the puzzles in this a lot. I really like the split path decision-making stuff here. I like Nightmare Beta. I think it's cool. Basically, you start off in the courtyard for mission 9, and the torches have changed the direction for where you're supposed to go, so they lead you right to where you're supposed to go. I don't think it's as explicit as on mission 9, so some people will get lost here. But This has got a really cool secret mission on it where you fight 3 shadows if you backtrack. You can backtrack, which is cool, into some other sections, but you're not going to think to backtrack, so you won't get lost. Basically, you have a shield, and you can use the shield on either side or both sides around the Coliseum, and they both have very similar but slightly different platforming challenges with spikes. One of them has spikes that come out on a wall on a timer with, like, you have to do some platforming with sin scythes in the room, and some poison floor. And that's cool. Whatever. There's a breakable wall in the next area that has like some holy waters and stuff. It's cool. And then the other side has spikes that are in the way, but you like hit a dial on a spinning floor, and then the spikes turn into platforms. I really like that there is a blue earth fragment that you can get underneath. I think that's a really cool touch. But I don't like that you can only get it before you grab the shield. I think that's dumb because it locks people out of getting it that would have gotten it otherwise. And you might not think to look down there until after you grab the item, but the platforms come up and then you can no longer do the thing, which is like kind of annoying. I really like Nightmare Beta. So Nightmare Beta is like this weapon that no one uses because it's not that great, but it uses your DT, but it's cool. It's fun. And it's in this mission if you do both paths. Whatever path you do first has the key item, and then the other path has the optional weapon, which is pretty sick. I like that. I think that's really, really cool. You could do some shenanigans and still get it, but a new player probably wouldn't think of it. See, I didn't even know you could still get it. But yeah, not a huge fan of that. I wish it was more accessible. They should have put the blue orb fragment on the other side, in my opinion, and let's just not had poison. There's also a platform that refills your DT, which is the only time it's in the game is in this mission, which is cool. And then when you get into the Coliseum fight, the Coliseum is a great arena. You can go up onto the platform and like collect some blue orb fragments and like walk around. You can even go into the stands. It's really cool. And the cutscenes are bangers. It's hard to argue this is not a triple S mission. I can't think of a single thing that's bad with it. Like, the Griffin 3 boss fight isn't that great, but it's really good. The options for multiple paths is awesome. Nightmare Beta is cool. Possible backtracking and one of the best secret missions in the game. Yeah, it's got to be triple S for sure. I don't think it's as good as Mission 3, but it's definitely a banger. And the music is banging too. And there's some great atmosphere for that level. All right, Mission 16, Nightmare of Darkness. This one's gonna be a little bit divisive. I'm a big Nightmare stan. Nightmare is my favorite boss in this game. I am biased by being like the #1 Nightmare guy in the world, but I will say that Nightmare is the sickest fight in the game when you know how it works. If you don't know how it works, then it is just a nightmare. The name is perfect. It's just a mess. You have no idea what's happening. The boss feels crazy random. He's super cool visually. But if you don't know about the cores carrying over across boss fights, then it could be really dicey, especially on DMD. But he's great. We'll get more to Nightmare later. The start of the mission, you're backtracking to go to the castle. It's made fairly obvious. You definitely won't get lost. Some sin sites to fight on the way, just whatever. Then you get back in the castle and it's nighttime and the music gets all eerie and the castle has been like shifted around a little bit because it's been warped by the evil Satan and shit, which is so cool. And then you get the plasma introduction cutscene where the lightning strikes the horse statue through the spot where you killed Phantom 3 from. And like the world feels super interconnected and the atmosphere is great. And even though it reuses the level that's been used a couple times already, the way they redo it is perfect. It feels like a perfectly new level where it's familiar because you've been there before, but completely different. The atmosphere is awesome. The introduction cutscene for the plasma is great, and plasmas are super fun to fight. I really like the touch where Mundus is like coming alive. So literally the Mundus statue has been removed from that area and there's like a secret dial behind it. It's pretty sick. And then yeah, you fight more plasmas and the whole area is all dark and spooky and it's really, really cool. There's some secret missions here. One secret mission at the very beginning where you do some platforming on some skulls. Perfect secret mission. It's pretty great. And then after beating Nightmare, you can come back and do a secret mission where you fight like 7 shadows and you have to find them in the darkness, which is a really, really cool secret mission. But yeah, hallway on DMD, it's got random enemies. It's whatever. But Nightmare, the boss fight. So Nightmare is a perfectly scripted fight. He will do the same thing every single time. So you can learn him and master him to perfection. But he is very hard to read when you're first playing the game. And people, when they first play the game, they figure out how to damage him pretty quickly. They always instantly get eaten and swallowed by him, which is great. I think that's a perfect design decision, actually, because you don't get punished for it. You don't take any damage when you get swallowed, but it tells you, look, this boss can't be hurt like this, and he's going to take you away, right? So when he's in muck form, run, right? Or hit the dials. And I think that's perfect. And the mechanic of him having previous bosses inside of him is genius. It's so cool, and it's super fun. Him being the same each time is what makes him less fun, IMO. I think that if he wasn't the same each time, he would be fucking impossible for a new player. But it's great. I love it. And the core mechanic is super cool. I think casually the core mechanic isn't that great because it's not explained very well. It's hard to intuit by playing the game. But once you know the core mechanic, it's really fun and makes you fight the boss in a super unique way that I've never seen in any game, let alone an action game. So I love that shit. And it's just a banger. This is easily best mission in the game so far for me. Triple S, 100%. Not very many cool cutscenes, but that's not necessarily a requirement. All right, mission 17, another triple S banger, easily. Back-to-back bangers. We got the final fight with Nello here. Probably one of the best fights in the game. Great cutscenes, tells you a lot about the story of the game. I really like the aesthetic of like jumping through the SM64 style fucking paintings. I think that's really cool. Yeah, the dino reflecting puzzle is very fun and a cool way to do it. Same thing with the lightning, making the platform show up in the same room. Banger of a puzzle, very cool. Rewards you for like knowing the section already. You know, you don't have to sit through a slow ass puzzle if you haven't done it before. You can just memorize the platform locations. And the hallway enemies are fun. It's the introduction to the Frost, which I think are pretty solid enemies. They're not the best enemies in the game, but they're pretty fun. And the cutscene is cool. I will say, fuck that Frost attack that comes out of the cutscene that is like near impossible to dodge without a setup. Fuck that. That shit's whack. But besides that, the level is like perfect. Too many new players don't understand the dino puzzle. That's true, but I think you figure it out pretty quickly, right? Fuck the Frost cutscene. But like, besides that, it's a near perfect level. Yeah, it's just a banger. Triple S, easily. I would say it's not as good as 16, in my opinion, just because I'm a Nightmare stan, but that's interchangeable. And fuck the Frost cutscene. All right, mission 18. This one's going to be super divisive. Spirit Stone Elixir. Throw the Philosopher's Egg into the fire and transform it into a Spirit Stone. So you're doing more backtracking after you defeat Nello, and you get Sparta. Sparta is cool. It's definitely the coolest design weapon in the game, but it's kind of dog shit and doesn't let you use DT. It auto-equips to it, so most people are going to attempt to use Sparta, but that doesn't really make sense because there are no enemies in this mission. It is the only enemy in this mission that you fight with your own weapons is Nightmare, and Sparta is not good for Nightmare. So I think that's a weird design decision to have you start out with Sparta, but not give you any enemies to fight. I think that this mission would be a lot better if there was a bunch of forced marionette kills at the start. Like, you watch the cutscene, you get Sparta, you know, you do the Sparta cutscene. It's a great cutscene. But then I think that instead of the portal opening it up right away, you should have to kill some marionettes with Sparta first. Because that would like show you like, hey, look, Sparta has the same moveset. It's really cool. Because for a lot of people, they put Sparta away because they don't want to use it for Nightmare, because they want to use their DT, and then they never bring it out again. Because you don't really fight marionettes from now to the rest of the game. And I think that it would have been great to have an introduction where you fight some marionettes at the beginning of the level. Because what you do is you go through the teleporter, and then you go through a painting, and in the painting you're doing a water level, and it's got a water level, and you have to fight enemies that go through walls while underwater with inverted controls, and it's kind of dog shit. I think that the water section is this is definitely the worst water section in the game. If you don't know how to fight it like quickly, it's pretty bad. And yeah, not fun. 3 really cool blue orbs on this mission for sure. But it does have another nightmare fight, and this nightmare fight is a banger, just like the other nightmare fight. So I'm really divided. Like, you could make the mission so much better if you remove the underwater section and give you some enemies to fight with Sparta, but you don't. So what do? You know? And so it's like, the nightmare fight is the same fight as the first nightmare fight, but it's not, because every person that fights nightmare is going to get a different fight, because whether or not they break the cores on their previous fight. And then if you get eaten, so you get eaten by nightmare in the first fight on 17 or on 16, and you have to fight Phantom, which is a cool refight. The bosses inside of Nightmare have slightly less HP, probably about half the HP that they do in the normal missions when you encounter them. But it's a great way for you to feel empowered. Like, you fight this boss again and you're like, oh, I'm so much better than I was back then. And but the Nightmare fight in 18 inside of Nightmare is Griffin, and it is definitely the worst of the 3 inside Nightmare fights, because the camera is dog shit in this fight. It is awful. Griffin like throws all these lightning things at you, but your camera is going through a pillar, so everything is dark, and then there's dust everywhere, and you can't see the lasers, and it's a nightmare. It's not that great. But it's still a nightmare fight, and I still love it. I think I gotta put this one at S tier. I don't think I can, with all the flaws it has with Nightmare, with the Sparta not being able to be tested, and then the underwater fights, and then the inside Nightmare fight being not that great, I gotta say, I think it's probably better than Mission 8, because is it better than Mission 8? I don't think so, actually. The cutscene is good, but it's not better than the cutscene where you kill Phantom for the first time, or when you kill Phantom, you know, for the final time. But it does have a Nightmare fight. Yeah, I gotta say it's S tier. I gotta say it's S tier. It definitely can't go any higher than that. All right, mission 19, enter the corrupted world. Open the gate to the underworld. Super cool premise. You go through some more paintings. Awesome thing here, if you miss Nightmare Beta on 15, you can get it here. It shows up here in a place that is way easier to see. Most people still miss it, but I love this. It means that you don't have to do both paths on 15 if you don't want to, because they're very similar content, and you can still get Nightmare Beta. I love that. It introduces nobodies, which are a pretty mid as fuck enemy, to be honest. So they don't really have a cool cutscene introduction. They're not that fun to fight. They're just okay. But I love the arena where you fight the nobodies. It is really cool. I love the distortion everywhere in the level, and I love that when you get there, there's just like, the sky is falling, dude. Like, you are in hell, and everything is wiggly, but it doesn't make you sick, and the gameplay is still great. You're crossing a broken bridge in this one, which the platforming is not that great, but I do love when you fall into the water, you get the damage over time, and then you get to fight the skulls again and teleport to the other side. I think it's solid. It's a solid mission. You go into the nightmare goop, which can be confusing. You could definitely get lost there. I've definitely seen people not go into the nightmare goop and then like not know where to go, and then they go back to like mission 1. So aesthetically, it's one of the best levels. It's a banger. But there's not much happening here. It's kind of a lot of walking around. I think it's got to be A tier. I think it's better than 7, but it's not as good as 4. All right, mission 20. Easy triple S banger. This is one of the best missions in the game, hands down. Basically all you do in this mission is you go into hell, which is sick, and the level design for hell is fucking rad. And then you fight 2 frosts, and then you fight nightmare, and that's the whole thing. That's the whole level. And this nightmare fight is awesome. The boss that you like when you get eaten in this fight, you fight Nello again, which is great because it's one of the best fights in the game. And you're also fighting nightmare. And I love the implication of the other nightmare fights affecting this one. And on top of that, like, it gets ramped up. It's not exactly the same fight as the other 2 nightmare fights because you have Trish. And then also you have the final phase, the desperation phase from Nightmare, where all shit hits the fan and fucking the dude just stun locks you to death every run, you know? Like, that sounds like ass, but it's really cool. It makes the fight legit scary. It's one of the only things in a game where I play it, even though I'm really good at the game, and I'm scared shitless. I have no idea what's gonna happen. And I love that because it's also balanced. Like, there are ways to counter that and do it well. And it's just, cutscenes are great. You got the Trish cutscene here where like she tries to betray Dante and then he saves her anyways, and it's pretty solid. This is the easily triple S banger for sure. One of the best in the game. I don't think it's as good as 16, but I think it's better than 17. Ooh, is it better than 17 or 16? Is it better than 17? 16? Oh man, I don't know. That's a hard one. Is it better than 16? Yeah, it's gotta be, right? The boss fight is better. Yeah, it's gotta be. That's the best mission in the game for me right now. So far, we've got 3 left. Mission 21, Living Cave. By far the coolest level design in the game. 100%. I love the aesthetics of Mission 21. Being in hell, but you're like inside of this beast and the walls are like moving and shaking and there's like a giant heart. It's fucking sick. Only downside is, there's a really cool secret mission here as well. The only downside I'd say is that you only fight nobodies and plasmas in this mission. So the combat is not that fun. And the tentacle dudes that stick out of the wall in the later section of the level are like super fucking annoying. I don't think they're bad design, but they're really annoying. Honestly, I just think there's not enough combat in this mission. Not enough combat that is like fun to do. And the platforming is kind of jank. But the level design is phenomenal. I love the music. No really super important cutscenes either. Just kind of like a whatever level. But the level design carries it hard. I'd say it is up here with like 19 in A tier. Probably the best A tier. Better than Mission 4. No, not better than Mission 4. Well, you can't get lost. Ooh, it's close between those 2. I think it's the best A tier. Also, yeah, it's got the best speedrun strat in the game. Cosmo Climb. All right, Mission 22, Mundus. All this mission is a pretty fucking banging cutscene, followed by the worst boss fight in the game. A fucking shmup boss that should not be in the game. Kamiya, I'm glad you're bald. Please don't procreate. And then like the second worst boss fight in the game right afterwards. And the problem is only exacerbated to an insane degree on DMD. It is way worse on DMD than it is on normal. These fights are just like annoying on normal, but on DMD, these fights are actually cancer and can stop people from beating the game on God. Like, people will get to 22 on DMD and just be like, never mind. Like, actually, like, I'm not finishing it, whatever. Because, dude, there just shouldn't be a shmup. There's no way there should be a shmup. Like, button mashing shmup? Like, really? I do like that you can learn the shmup and you can do it no damage and you can do it well or whatever. But, bro, you can shoot as fast as you register inputs on the shmup, dude. That means you just start supposed to button mash like crazy. You can just hold the button and shoot, but the default shoot speed is so slow. Like, bro, hold down the shoot button and make it shoot like macro speed. If it did that, it would be way less egregious, bro. Way less egregious. And both of the bosses are in the same mission. The same mission. So if you run out of yellow orbs on Mundus 2, you have to do Mundus 1 again, bro. So a lot of people will get here with no fucking yellow orbs because they use them all on Nightmare 3. And now they have to do 2 bosses back to back that both suck cock. It's so bad. It is so bad. And not to mention, Mundus 2 has a bunch, he's basically an MMO boss fight. He has a bunch of area of effect attacks, and a lot of them, dude, fucking, I will say half of them are unreadable. It is like impossible to know where the attack is coming from, or if you're gonna get hit or not, or how to consistently dodge them. And that's just the first phase. When he gets less than half of his HP, he starts to attack more quickly, and he can overlap his attacks. And sometimes those attacks overlap in ways that are just complete bullshit. Like, he will have these orbs that spawn in the middle of the arena that shoot in directions that track you, and at the same time be doing an attack that comes down from the top that you have to run horizontally from. So you'll be running horizontally and you have to run in DT or it'll hit you away from like these red lasers while random spikes are coming at you from the perpendicular direction. And they're untrackable. They're so small. They don't even have a shadow on HD Collection. See, it's like so hard to tell when they're going to hit you. And the platform you're standing on doesn't go all the way around. So there's sections where there's lava that you'll take damage over time all the way around. I will say the saving grace of this fight is the lava cannot kill you. So it only does damage to you and can't kill you. And because of that, you can just jump in the lava and beat the shit out of Mundus, even on DMD. That makes this like way better. But most people are never going to do that. And the fights are dog shit. And after the second fight, you get met with the best / worst cutscene in the game, where the Dark Soul with Light cutscene with the lip quiver and the terrible voice acting, which is a plus and a minus. I mean, if you're trying to be genuine about it, like obviously that's another minus. So this is easily the worst mission in the game. But you can enjoy it ironically, but you can't enjoy the boss fights ironically. So definitely 22 worst mission in the game, D tier, easily. I would say it's even at a higher level of garbage than mission 1. Like maybe even create a whole new tier to put mission 22 in and just be like, skip this if you can. All right, finally we got mission 23. Mother's Guide, escape Malay Island before it collapses. This mission, I honestly forget is a mission sometimes because it's really short and it's super simple. You just run from where you beat Mundus to the beginning of the game. And it's whatever. There's a timer, but the timer's free. You'll never die to it, even casually. It's just a whatever level. You fight 2 nobodies and then 2 frosts on DMD, one optional frost on normal. And then you go back up, and then there's a room full of marionettes that's completely optional, and then a room with some blades in it that's not optional, and there's a shadow in that room. If you die, the timer resets to 5 minutes regardless of the room. I did not know that. So yeah, the timer is basically useless. It's kind of just like a plot device. The music is great. And then you are trying to backtrack to the beginning of the game, but then all of a sudden, like the floor falls out, and like now you're trapped in that section in mission 6, and Mundus is here again, and there's another Mundus boss fight. But this one is super simple. It's completely free. He has some weird iframes. It's more of a set piece boss. It's not really a real boss fight. And it has a really cool cutscene. Like the jackpot cutscene is great. And then you are put in another shmup section, but this time it's like an on-rails escape sequence where what you do really doesn't matter. If you shoot 2 or 3 spikes, then you could just AFK and you won't die. So it's whatever. It is annoying to have to learn because the gameplay is so different if you're trying to get like SBs or S ranks to try to learn to make sure you don't take damage in the plane section. But it's whatever. Inverted controls, not a fan, but it's blah. And then you have like the ending cutscenes to the game, which are really solid and quite fun. But overall, it's pretty mid. I'd say this is probably A tier. It's probably A tier. It's, is it better than 11? Is it better than Mission 2? Yeah, I'd say it's better than Mission 2. So it's here. So here's our list. That's it. That's all the missions. So at triple S tier, best mission in the game, hands down, Mission 20. Followed by 16 and 17. And then 9, Mission 3, and Mission 15. And then at S tier, slightly not as good as the God tier ones, but very solid missions. We got Mission 8, Mission 18, Mission 23, Mission 2, and Mission 11. Then at A tier, just okay missions that are pretty solid, but nothing special. We got Mission 21, Mission 4, Mission 19, Mission 7, and Mission 12. I gotta say, 12 is definitely in front of 7, though. Yeah, that's about right. And then C tier, we got some of the worst missions in the game, but not the worst missions, with missions 10, 11, and 7. And 6, I mean. 10, 11, and 6. The worst missions in the game by far, definitely Mission 5. Surprising to see Mission 5 so low on the list. Honestly, I feel like I gotta put it up at C tier. It's not nearly as bad as these 3. These 3 are on like a whole nother level, right? But these ones all seem to fit together. So yeah, we'll put it up at C tier. D tier, we got Mission 13, Mission 1, and Mission 22. I'd definitely say Mission 1 is better than 13, though. Mission 1 is only bad because on replays, it just drags. And Mission 22, far and away, the worst mission in the game. Love seeing the consistently high quality of the majority of the missions. Yeah, I mean, I think that these 3 are... Honestly, like, Mission 1 is probably in, like, a slightly higher tier than these other 2. These 2 are kind of dog shit. But these ones are only bad, and then everything above that is, like, pretty good. Like, even Mission 1 is, like, okay. It's not bad. You know? Honestly, I'm putting it at C tier. I think that Mission 1 has to be C tier. I think these are the only missions that are bad. I think everyone else, all the other ones are okay or better. Like these ones are okay. And these ones are like pretty good. And these ones are like really solid. And then these ones are bangers. And a lot of the longer missions are the better ones. Which is interesting. I wouldn't have thought that. I thought maybe the shorter ones are better, but these ones up here are all like longer missions. But I think if I put like, if it was 2 tiers, good and bad, everything except for D tier is good, and then D is bad. The mission quality overall is really good. There's some stuff I thought that's on here that's really high up that I wouldn't have thought of. Like, I wouldn't have thought of Mission 9 as a banger mission. Just because I skip Griffin fight so much, and I don't watch cutscenes very often. But like, when I think about it, yeah, definitely. Good game has almost all good missions. Yeah, there's just 2 that I don't really like that much. This is solid. Well, that's the tier list. Maybe I'll do one for each game. It's like an hour long, though. I guess I had a lot to say. This is damn near a review of the whole fucking game. All right.